My sister had the nerve to kick me out of her apartment, completely oblivious to the fact that I was the one who actually bankrolled the whole operation. A cool $2.5 million investment if you don't mind. What's up everyone? And welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, be sure to smash that subscribe button and drop a hello in the comments below. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump right back into today's wild story. There I was standing like a complete idiot in the hallway with my suitcase at my feet, just staring at the door that had just been slammed shut right in my face. My sister's cutting words were still ringing in my ears like a broken record. Get the hell out of my apartment, Maya. You don't belong here anymore. The sound of the deadbolt locking was so final and absolute. It felt like a ton of bricks falling on my chest. 28 years of sisterhood had been reduced to this single horrible moment. Only 3 months prior, I had moved into what I truly thought was a safe haven, a refuge. My sister Carol had practically begged me to move in with her, calling me up in tears and saying she needed me. I need you, Maya, she'd whined. Mom and Dad are driving me up the freaking wall. And I'm so lonely in this huge place. So like a sucker, I'd packed up my stuff and left my tiny studio apartment clear across town, genuinely believing that family came first, positive that she actually wanted me there. The building's marble floors were gleaming under the bright hallway lights as I just stood there, trying to make sense of what had just happened, trying to wrap my head around the situation. My hands were trembling slightly as I reached for my phone. The screen flashed with a reminder. Property management meeting 2 p.m. Right? Because while Carol was under the delusion that she was the queen of her little castle, I was keeping a secret from her, one that she couldn't even begin to imagine in her wildest dreams. If you're watching this, you probably know what it feels like to be given the cold shoulder by your own flesh and blood. Seriously, drop a comment and let me know your story. Trust me, you're definitely not alone in this. I picked up my suitcase, but I didn't head straight for the elevator like any normal person would. Instead, I walked down the hallway to the building manager's office. It was time for Carol to get a serious reality check. It was finally time for her to get it through her thick skull that the luxury apartment she'd been flaunting for the past 2 years, the one she was so proud of, I was the one who bought this entire building, every single unit, all $2.5 million worth. The memory flashed through my mind as I walked. 6 years ago, I was sitting at Mom's kitchen table, listening to Carol make fun of my little computer job. Dad had just come home from the factory, and Mom was serving up her famous pot roast. I was 22, working 80-hour weeks as a junior developer, practically living on ramen noodles while I was building my very first app. Maya thinks she's going to strike it rich making phone games, Carol had announced with a dramatic eye roll, swirling her wine glass like she was in some kind of soap opera. She was 24, working part-time at some fancy boutique, and still living at home, rent-free, mooching off our parents. Mom, can you believe she turned down that receptionist job at Dad's buddy's company? A real job with benefits. I just smiled tightly, carefully cutting my meat into smaller pieces, trying to keep my cool. It's not a game, Carol. It's a productivity app for. Nobody cares, Maya. Dad had interrupted, reaching for more potatoes like he hadn't eaten in a week. Your sister's right. You need some stability. This tech stuff is just a phase. You're throwing your degree away. Mom had nodded in agreement, patting Carol's hand affectionately. At least Carol understands the value of real work. Maybe you should be more like your sister, Maya. Practical. Down to earth. I excused myself early that night, driving back to my tiny studio apartment with tears streaming down my face, feeling completely defeated. The app launched 3 months later. Within 6 months, a major tech company acquired it for $8 million. I was 23 years old and suddenly richer than I'd ever dreamed possible. I never told them, not right away. I wanted to see what they were really like first, to see if their attitude would change. That decision saved me from years of fake love and manipulative behavior. It also showed me exactly where I stood in my family's pecking order, which was pretty low. I remembered the day I bought this building like it was yesterday. My financial advisor, Lance, had spread the documents across his mahogany desk, his dark eyes serious behind his wire-rimmed glasses. Maya, this is a significant investment. Are you absolutely certain about this? Completely certain, I replied, signing page after page without hesitation. The building was in foreclosure. A beautiful pre-war structure with 20 units in a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood. The previous owner had let it fall into disrepair. But I saw the potential. I saw home. Lance leaned back in his chair, studying me intently. Your family doesn't know about your financial situation, do they? In my 20 years doing this work, I've never seen anyone maintain this level of privacy from their own parents. You don't know my family, I said quietly. My sister called me last week, first time in 8 months. She needed money for a security deposit. When I told her I couldn't help, she called me selfish and hung up. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had millions in the bank, but I told Carol no because I wanted to see if she would call back, apologize, or just talk to me like a sister. She never did, until a year later when she needed a place to complain about our parents. I'm renovating the entire building, I told Lance, top to bottom. I want it to be somewhere people feel safe, somewhere they belong. The renovations took 18 months and cost another $1 million. I poured my heart into every single detail. Hardwood floors, modern kitchens, updated electrical systems. I even chose the paint colors myself, spending hours agonizing over the perfect shade of gray. When it was all said and done, the building was worth $5 million easily. I listed the units at reasonable rents, wanting good tenants, not just wealthy ones. Carol was the first to apply because of course she was. When Carol's application landed on my desk, forwarded by my property manager, Janet, I stared at it for a solid hour. My sister's name on official paperwork, requesting to rent unit 304, my best unit, the one with the balcony overlooking the courtyard I'd personally landscaped. Janet had called me, clearly confused. Maya, the applicant for 304 has the same last name as you. Is she your sister? I confirmed it. Process her application like anyone else's. Don't mention that I'm the owner. Janet hesitated. Are you sure? Her credit score isn't great, and her income barely meets our threshold. She's working retail and listed your parents as co-signers, but their income isn't much better. I reviewed the numbers. Carol was making $32,000 a year, asking to rent a $2,200 a month apartment. The math simply didn't add up. Any other applicant would have been rejected immediately. Approve it, I said. Reduce her rent to $1,400. Tell her the owner is offering a special rate for long-term tenants. Janet started to protest. I know what I'm doing, I interrupted, even though I wasn't entirely sure that I did. Part of me wanted to give Carol a chance, a nice place to live that she could actually afford. Part of me wanted to observe her, see if she'd changed at all. And part of me, the part one wasn't particularly proud of, wanted her close by, under my thumb for once in my life so I could finally have some control. Carol had moved in 2 years ago, never once questioning the discounted rent or wondering who the actual owner of the building was. She'd posted dozens of photos on social media, calling it my luxury apartment, bragging about making it, never once thanking me for anything. Over the next 18 months, I watched my sister morph from grateful to entitled. I remained anonymous, staying in my penthouse on the top floor, the one unit I'd kept for myself, listed under an LLC so no one could trace it back to me. Janet would forward me Carol's complaints. Carol called again. She wants us to repaint her living room. Says the beige is depressing and she deserves better. Another time. She's demanding we remove the tenant in 204. Says their music is too loud at 7 p.m. I checked. They were playing jazz at a perfectly reasonable volume. The breaking point came when Mom and Dad visited. I saw them arrive from my window, watched them walk into the building carrying casserole dishes. I wasn't invited to that dinner, hadn't been invited to any family gatherings in 3 years, not since I stopped loaning them money that I would never see again. My phone rang an hour later. Carol's name lit up the screen. Curiosity got the better of me, so I answered. Her voice was unnaturally bright, almost fake. So, I'm having a little bit of a financial issue. The rent went up. It hadn't, of course. And I was thinking, since you have that computer job, maybe you could help me out? Just $500 a month until I get back on my feet. I closed my eyes, standing in my custom kitchen with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances, feeling completely used. Carol, I can't right now. I have my own expenses. Of course you do, she snapped, the sweetness completely vanishing. You know what? Forget it. I should have known better than to ask you for anything. You've always been selfish. And then she hung up on me. I stared at my phone, feeling a coldness settle in my chest. The sister I'd loved, the one I'd shared a bedroom with growing up, was gone. In her place was a stranger who saw me as nothing more than an ATM, someone to take advantage of. Seriously, comment below if you've ever had family treat you like a bank instead of a person. It's a horrible feeling. 3 months ago, everything took a turn for the worse. Carol called me at midnight, sobbing so hard I could barely make out what she was saying. Maya, please, I need you. Can you come over? I threw on some clothes and rushed to her apartment, my heart pounding in my chest. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and I couldn't just abandon her when she was in distress. The door opened to reveal Carol in her pajamas, mascara streaming down her face, the apartment a complete wreck. What happened? Are you hurt? I asked, quickly scanning her for any injuries. It's Mom and Dad, she gasped. They're suffocating me, Maya. Every day it's, when are you getting a better job? And why aren't you married yet? And your sister might be smart, but she's all alone. I can't take it anymore. I need someone on my side. Please, will you stay with me for a while? Just until I figure things out. I looked into her eyes and saw genuine pain. The same pain I'd carried for years, the weight of never being good enough for our parents. In that moment, I made a decision that I would come to regret. A decision based on misplaced loyalty and a desperate hope for reconciliation. Okay, I said. I'll stay. The next day, I moved a few bags into her guest room. I told Janet to hold my mail, that I'd be staying in Unit 304 temporarily. Janet looked concerned, but didn't say anything. Those first few weeks were actually pretty decent. We stayed up late talking, sharing stories, laughing at old memories. I cooked dinners while Carol griped about the customers at the boutique. We watched movies on her couch, my couch technically, since I'd furnished the unit. For a moment, I genuinely believed that we could be sisters again. That we could put the past behind us and forge a new, healthier relationship. But as anyone who's dealt with toxic family members knows, good times with toxic people are just brief intermissions between disasters. A fleeting moment of peace before the storm returns. Then Mom and Dad paid another visit. They arrived on a Sunday afternoon, and I immediately felt the atmosphere change. Dad looked at me like I was some unwelcome intruder, like I had crashed a party I wasn't invited to. Well, didn't know you'd be here. She's staying with me, Carol said, her voice taking on an edge I hadn't heard in weeks, since she doesn't have much going on. I froze with a plate of cookies halfway to the coffee table, my stomach churning. I'm just helping Carol out. She asked me to stay. Mom pursed her lips disapprovingly. Well, Carol's always been generous, too generous sometimes. My dear, don't you think you should get your own place? You're almost 30, still bouncing around. I have my own place. I started, then caught myself. They didn't know about the penthouse, didn't know about any of it, and I wasn't about to reveal my secret just to appease their judgmental attitudes. Dad settled into the armchair, the one I'd custom ordered, making himself right at home. Carol works hard for this apartment. She doesn't need a freeloader taking advantage. She's not freeloading, Carol said weakly. Not exactly the defense I'd hoped for, but I guess it was better than nothing. The visit lasted 3 hours, 3 long hours of passive-aggressive comments about my computer job, questions about why I wasn't married, and suggestions that I should be more ambitious like Carol, the sister who worked part-time retail and lived in an apartment she could barely afford. The apartment I owned and had discounted specifically for her. The irony of it all was almost unbearable. After they left, I retreated to the guest room, feeling drained and defeated. Through the wall, I heard Carol on the phone. Yeah, Mom, I know. She's a bit pathetic, isn't she? But she's family. What can you do? I packed my bags that night, ready to finally cut my losses and get out of that toxic environment. But before I could leave, Carol knocked on my door, tears in her eyes again. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. Please don't go. I really do need you here. Foolishly, I stayed, clinging to the hope that things could still change. His name was Deshaun, and he showed up in week 6 of my stay, throwing another wrench into the already messed up dynamic. Carol had been hush-hush about him, mentioning a new relationship, but not giving many details. When I finally met him, I understood why. He strutted into the apartment like he owned the place. Designer jacket, expensive cologne, the kind of overconfidence that comes from never being told no. "So you're the sister?" he said, looking me up and down with barely concealed disdain, like I was some kind of specimen under a microscope. "Carol said you were staying here temporarily." "How temporary are we talking?" "That's between me and Carol," I replied evenly, trying to keep my cool. He laughed, turning to Carol. "Baby, I thought we talked about this. When I move in next month, we can't have a third wheel cramping our style." I looked at my sister, my heart sinking. "You're moving him in?" Carol avoided my eyes, shuffling her feet. "We're in love, Maya. You wouldn't understand. You've never had anyone serious. And technically, this is my apartment. I can do what I want." That word, technically, stung more than it should have. Technically, every inch of this apartment was mine. Technically, I could kick her out with 30 days' notice. Technically, I held all the cards she thought she had. But I said nothing, just nodded and retreated to my room, feeling like a complete idiot for ever thinking things could work out. Deshaun started crashing over regularly, treating me like I was a nuisance, like I was invisible. He'd hog the bathroom for an hour every morning, leaving me scrambling to get ready for work. He'd eat my food from the fridge without asking, leaving empty containers and wrappers everywhere. He'd watch TV at volume levels that shook the walls, completely oblivious to the fact that I was trying to work in the next room. Give this a thumbs up if you've ever had to deal with someone else's awful partner invading your personal space. It's the worst. When I politely asked him to turn down the volume one night, he smirked like he was enjoying my discomfort. "Maybe you should get your own place instead of mooching off your successful sister." Successful? I almost chuckled, almost spilled the beans right then and there, but I decided to save it for a more dramatic moment. It all went down on a Tuesday morning. I'd been living with Carol for almost 3 months, and the situation had gone south beyond recognition, spiraling into a toxic mess. Deshaun was there 5 nights a week, treating the apartment like his own personal kingdom, leaving his stuff everywhere and making himself completely at home. Carol had stopped pretending we were having sister time. Most nights they'd lock themselves in her room, leaving me to sit alone in my guest room, the room I designed with floor-to-ceiling windows, feeling like an intruder in my own building, like I didn't belong. That morning I brewed some coffee and sat down at the kitchen table to go over some documents Janet had sent over. One of my tenants in Unit 412 was requesting a lease renewal, and I needed to review the terms. I was reading through it when Deshaun emerged from Carol's bedroom, shirtless, scratching his stomach, looking like he just rolled out of bed. "You still here?" he muttered, opening my custom refrigerator without a second thought. "Thought you'd have bailed by now." "Carol asked me to stay," I replied calmly, trying to ignore his rude behavior. He pulled out some orange juice, the fancy organic kind I'd bought, and drank straight from the carton like some kind of animal. "Yeah, well, things change. We're planning our future here. This apartment's about to become a home for a real family, you know? No room for hangers-on." Something in his tone made me look up sharply, a warning bell going off in my head. "Excuse me. You heard me." He leaned against the counter, orange juice in hand, looking smug. "Carol's too nice to say it, but I'm not. You need to leave. Find your own place. Stop living off your sister's success." The irony was so absurd, so completely ridiculous, I actually burst out laughing. The sound startled both of us. "Something funny?" Deshaun demanded, his face turning red. Before I could respond, Carol appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a silk robe, my robe actually, one I'd left in the bathroom, confirming my suspicions that she had probably stolen it. "What's going on?" "Just telling your sister it's time to hit the road," Deshaun said casually, like he was discussing the weather. Carol looked back and forth between us, and I saw something calculating behind her eyes, some decision being made, some cold, hard assessment of the situation. When she spoke, her voice was icy, devoid of any warmth. "He's right, Maya. It's been 3 months. You said you'd stay temporarily. This is temporary. Time's up." I slowly set down my coffee cup, my legs feeling disconnected from my body, like they weren't my own. This was really happening. "You want me to leave right now? This minute?" "Don't be dramatic," Carol sighed, rolling her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "Take an hour. But definitely today. I'll even give you a hand with your bags. That's when it all hit me, the full force of my family's complete disregard. Not just today's dismissal, but years and years of it. Every time they brushed off my achievements, every family gathering I wasn't invited to, every phone call that only came when they needed something, every moment I tried to be a good daughter, a good sister, and been met with indifference or contempt. It was all coming to a head, all culminating in this one horrible moment. Fine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll go. I packed in silence while Carol and Deshawn whispered in the living room, probably celebrating their victory. 45 minutes later, I stood at the door with my suitcase, looking at my sister one last time, trying to find some trace of the person I used to know. Carol, I said softly, did you ever actually want me here? Or did you just need someone to complain to until Deshawn came along? She rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed by my question. God, Maya, why do you always have to make everything about you? Yes, I wanted you here when I needed support. Now I don't. People move on, grow up. Get out of my apartment, she added, stepping closer, her voice hardening. You don't belong here anymore. Actually, you never really did. This is mine. I earned this. Me? Not you. That's when she gave me a shove, not hard but firmly, into the hallway, sending a clear message that I was no longer welcome. The door slammed in my face, the lock clicking with finality, sealing my fate. I stood there for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, letting the reality sink in like a lead weight, feeling the sting of betrayal and the weight of years of disappointment. Then I pulled out my phone and called Janet. I'm coming to the office, I said, my voice trembling slightly. It's time. Janet was waiting when I arrived, her expression sympathetic. She was a black woman in her 50s, sharp as a tack, who'd managed properties for 20 years before I hired her. She'd understood from day one why I'd kept my identity a secret, knowing the kind of drama that could unfold. You ready to do this? She asked, her eyes conveying a silent message of support. More than ready, I replied, my resolve hardening. Let's start with Unit 304. Janet pulled up Carol's lease on her computer. She's 2 months behind on rent. I've been covering it from the discretionary fund like you asked. She doesn't even know she's delinquent. My stomach did a flip-flop, realizing the extent of my own foolishness. So, I've been paying my own rent while she threw me out? Basically, yeah, Janet confirmed, her voice laced with a hint of disapproval. Should I go ahead with the 30-day notice? I thought about it, thought about Carol's face when she shoved me into the hallway, thought about Deshawn drinking from my juice carton, thought about years of being treated like I was less than, like I was the family screw-up, when all along I'd been the one holding all the aces. No, I said, a plan forming in my mind. I'm going to tell her myself. If you've stuck around this long, drop a justice in the comments because this is where everything shifts into high gear, where the game changes completely. I returned to Unit 304 20 minutes later, Janet beside me, holding a folder of documents, ready to unleash the full force of my carefully crafted plan. My hands were rock steady as I knocked, 3 sharp raps on the door I'd handpicked, in the building I'd shelled out millions for, on the floor I'd painstakingly refinished. Carol yanked open the door, looking annoyed, clearly interrupted from something important. Ugh. I told you I'm not in the mood. I'm not here as your sister, I interrupted, my voice cold and detached. I'm here as your landlord. The bewilderment on her face would have been almost amusing if my heart hadn't been shattering, if I hadn't felt the weight of years of wasted effort and misplaced loyalty. What? Janet said in a businesslike tone, stepping forward and taking charge of the situation. My name is Janet Williams. I'm the property manager for this building. This is Maya Johnson, the owner. You're 2 months behind on rent, and we're here to discuss your immediate eviction. Carol laughed, actually laughed, like I had just told her the funniest joke in the world. Is this some kind of joke? Maya, what kind of twisted prank is this? It's not a prank, I said softly, my voice laced with a hint of sadness. I bought this building 3 years ago for $2. $5 million. I renovated it. I picked out every paint color, every fixture. I approved your application personally and knocked $800 off your rent every month because you're my sister. I've been propping up your life while you treated me like dirt. The color completely vanished from her face, replaced with a look of shock and disbelief. You're lying. Janet opened the folder, displaying lease documents, ownership papers, bank statements, all the proof she needed to understand the situation. These are all part of the public record. Your sister owns this whole building, every unit including this one. Deshaun materialized behind Carol, his eyes wide with panic. Baby, what's happening? Your girlfriend, I said, locking eyes with him, has been living in an apartment owned by the hanger and you've been insulting, the mooch you wanted out. I'm worth 8 figures. Every time you guzzled my orange juice, every time you told me to leave, you were standing on my property, eating my food, breathing my air. His jaw dropped, his face turning pale. Carol stumbled backward, grasping for something to hold on to. Maya! Wait, let me explain. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, I said, my voice finally cracking, the tears threatening to spill over. You never wondered how I could take 3 months off work. Never questioned why I was always around. You just figured I was failing because that suited your story better. It made you feel superior. Please, she whispered, her voice trembling. Don't do this. I'm your sister. You stopped being my sister the moment you shoved me into that hallway, I replied, my voice cold and resolute. Janet, proceed with the eviction. 30 days. I know. Carol grabbed my arm, her grip desperate. I have nowhere to go. Mom and Dad can't take me in. You know how they are. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not my sister but a stranger, someone who'd taken and never once said thank you, someone who'd built herself up by tearing me down, someone who'd chosen a guy she'd known for 3 months over the sister who'd given her everything. The realization was both heartbreaking and liberating. You'll figure it out, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. You always told me how successful you are, how you earned all this, so earn your way out. I turned to go, Janet following close behind, when Carol crumpled to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. I'll tell Mom and Dad. They'll make you tell them, I said, not turning around, my back straight and my head held high. Tell them how their failure daughter owns a $2.5 million building. Tell them how I gave you a discount you never deserved. Tell them everything. I don't care anymore. That was my sentiment exactly 6 months ago. Carol vacated the premises on day 28, moving in with Deshaun in his cramped studio apartment, an arrangement that lasted all of 2 weeks before he, too, showed her the door. She's back under Mom and Dad's roof now, relegated to sleeping on the couch in their already too small 2-bedroom house. She's attempted to contact me 147 separate times. I haven't answered once. Mom and Dad have also tried to get a hold of me, suddenly showing an interest in their successful daughter. I blocked their numbers as well. Last week, I ran into Carol at the local grocery store. She appeared worn down, prematurely aged somehow. She started to say something, but I simply kept walking. I had absolutely nothing left to say to her. People often ask me if I have any regrets, if I feel any remorse about evicting my own sister. The truth is, sometimes, some days I do miss the way things were. Some days I find myself desperately longing for the sister I thought I had, the picture-perfect family I so desperately wanted us to be. But on most days, the memory that replays in my mind is standing in that godforsaken hallway, suitcase clutched tightly in my hand, my heart completely and utterly shattered into a million pieces. That's when it truly hit me, the realization that the people who should have loved me unconditionally only loved what they believed I could give them. Last month, I completed the renovations on Unit 304. We're talking luxurious marble countertops, brand new, top-of-the-line stainless steel appliances, the whole 9 yards. I even went above and beyond and installed state-of-the-art smart home technology. Naturally, I adjusted the rent accordingly, raising it to $2,800 a month, which is, standard market value in this area. A young, enthusiastic couple moved in just last week. They're both teachers. They always hold hands affectionately in the elevator and never fail to express their gratitude, saying genuinely sweet things like, "Thank you so much for everything you do. My building is now operating at full capacity. I have 20 families who consistently pay their rent on time, treat their neighbors with respect and consideration, and most importantly, treat the property as if it were their own cherished home. I even host a lively barbecue every summer, right here in the building's courtyard. I know each and every one of their names, their unique stories, their hopes and dreams for the future. I still reside in the penthouse all by myself, but being alone feels fundamentally different now. It feels less like a painful, isolating loneliness and more like a profound sense of peace and tranquility, a calm and serene state of mind I never believed was possible for me to achieve. If you've stayed with me until the very end of this story, I sincerely hope you understand that your intrinsic worth is not defined by how your own family chooses to treat you. Sometimes the family we consciously choose, the people who genuinely appreciate and value us for who we are at our core, those connections hold so much more significance than the family we were simply born into. I managed to build a $2.5 million real estate empire while my own family was busy labeling me a failure. I generously gave my sister absolutely everything she could have ever wanted, while she, in turn, gave me nothing but endless heartache and pain. And in the end, I made the conscious and deliberate decision to choose myself. I finally prioritized my own well-being and happiness, and that was without a doubt the single best damn decision I have ever made in my entire life. Please consider subscribing to my channel if this story resonated with you on any level. Feel free to share it with someone you know who might need to hear that choosing yourself is absolutely not a selfish act. It's an act of survival, plain and simple. And please don't hesitate to leave a comment and share your own personal stories down below. Your experience truly matters. Your pain is valid and deserves to be acknowledged, and you deserve so much better than you've been getting. The building still stands tall and proud, a testament to my hard work and determination. My name is clearly displayed on the deed, in big, bold, unmistakable letters. My rules and regulations are clearly stated in every single lease agreement, with no exceptions whatsoever. Carol is free to drive past it anytime she wants. She can see all the lights and windows that she once mistakenly considered to be hers. She can reminisce about what it felt like to have everything handed to her on a silver platter, only to throw it all away out of sheer pride and stubbornness. Me? I diligently water the plants in my courtyard, carefully approve all the lease renewals, and sleep soundly and peacefully each and every night, knowing that I am finally, truly, and completely free. Some endings aren't necessarily happy in the traditional, fairy tale sense, but they are honest and authentic. And sometimes being honest with yourself is all that really matters in the end.